Is the Motorola Moto G Power 5G 2024 still worth buying in 2025? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, and this is the Motorola Moto G Power 5G 2024. Now, as the name of this device does imply, the Moto G Power 5G 2024 was indeed launched last year. And since then, we have actually gotten a 2025 model of the device, and I have already done a dedicated comparison video between this phone and that phone, so definitely make sure to check that out to see the true differences between those two devices. And before we get too far into things here with the Moto G Power, let's see what comes included in the box. So here is the box. You can see here it is indeed the 2024 model, and it is a slim box because there is no USB wall adapter included, but I'll show you what is actually here. So we are getting a double-sided USB-C cable for charging and data transfer. We're also getting some literature here, and we have a SIM card removal tool. Now with this device, we're getting a very large 6.7-inch display. Now, despite this actually being a budget phone, it is nice that we are getting such a large display panel here, because this device is excellent for watching video content because we are getting such a large canvas. Now, in addition to that, the display is IPS LCD, but we are getting a 120 Hz refresh rate, so a really fast refresh rate with the phone. So this really makes the phone feel fast, that's for sure. And it really is a nice upgrade compared to the typical 60 Hz that you'd expect to find with a budget smartphone. Now, in addition to that, this display is 1080p. I'm not gonna lie, the viewing angles aren't necessarily the best, but again, it's a budget device, so you can't expect too much here. But we are getting a PPI of 393, a 20:9 aspect ratio, so a narrow but tall form factor, and then an 84.8% screen to body ratio. So the bottom bezel on the device is a bit thicker compared to the other bezels, but I do appreciate that at least up top here, we do have a hole punch for the 16 megapixel front-facing camera. Now internally here with this device, we are getting 128 gigabytes of storage along with microSD card expansion. Now honestly, having 128 gigs is really nice, especially for a phone that has an MSRP of just $299. Now I'm sure also, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the video, if you want to buy this phone right now, you probably will be saving quite a bit of money compared to that full price since it has actually been out for a while. But 128 gigabytes is awesome, and then having that option for microSD card expansion makes this phone even more useful. Now another thing that's useful is that we're actually getting wireless charging here with the device. And to make things even better, the wireless charging is 15 watts. Now I am someone who does use wireless charging quite a bit with devices that do support it, so I'm really glad that we're getting that here. And then 15 watts is actually pretty fast because I've used smartphones that have a lot slower wireless charging, and that does also make a big difference. Now with this device, we are getting face unlock, but we're also getting a side-mounted fingerprint sensor. Now this is very fast and easy to get into the phone with, so I do appreciate that. Let's try that one more time. So you can see it's super responsive, which is great. So, with higher end phones, we'll typically find the fingerprint sensor built into the display. So in many ways, having it on the side here is a downgrade, but at the same time, I actually feel like this placement is pretty useful and it is intuitive. Now take a look at the camera module on the back of the device. We are getting a dual camera setup along with the flash. Now I'll go over into the camera app right now and show you how things look. And you can see here's how things are with the standard camera at 1x. Then from there, we can go over to 0.5 for the ultra wide camera. And with that, we can fit a lot more content into a single frame. And then we can go over to this kind of flower icon. And with that, we can access macro mode. Now keep in mind, this phone doesn't actually have a dedicated macro camera. This macro mode simply uses other cameras on the device, but it's still better than nothing. In addition to that, we can go over to the More tab here and access other options. So there's dual capture, for example, so you can capture images with both the rear and front cameras at the same time, which is awesome. We can also go over to spot colors, so you can choose certain colors to stand out. There's also a document scanner built in and other options here as well. We also have portrait mode, so you can get those nice blurred out backgrounds with both the rear and front facing camera. So that is a feature that I use quite a bit. And then we do also have a group selfie option, so it does crop things out slightly when taking selfie photos. Now as far as video goes, this phone is limited at 1080p with both the front and rear cameras, which is a bit disappointing. I wish this phone did have 4K video, but I suppose at this price segment, you can't expect to get everything. Now as far as performance goes, this phone comes with 8 gigabytes of RAM, along with the MediaTek Dimensity 7020 processor. Now I actually found that to run really well here. This phone is super fast and responsive. Of course, part of that is due to the fast refresh rate on the device, but that refresh rate is only fast because the processor can actually support it. So keep that in mind. Now I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 6, and here are the scores that I got from that test. So I got a single core score of 919 and a multi-core score of 2313. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to see how this device actually compares to what you currently have. Another thing to keep in mind as well, you can see Android 15. This phone originally came with Android 14, and I did update it to Android 15 and reran this benchmark test, so you can actually see what the scores are like with the latest version of the software here on the G Power 2024. Now certainly watch my comparison to the 2025 model of the device, but I was surprised to see that the benchmark scores are actually higher here on this device compared to the successor. I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if it's because of better optimization. I would have assumed that by switching it over to Android 15, we would have had a performance decrease, especially compared to it being on Android 14. But it seems like Motorola really did a good job optimizing this device, and that's certainly something that I cannot complain about. Also, another nice thing about this phone is that we're getting a very large 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery. To make things even better, this phone does support up to 30 watt fast charging. So it is nice that not only is the battery big, but you can recharge it very quickly. Other highlights include stereo audio, so you're getting audio out of both the main speaker on the bottom of the phone and also the earpiece. And then we're also getting NFC for tap and pay. Now, as far as the materials of the phone go, this material on the back of the device is known as eco leather. Now, they have continued that on to the successor of this device, so clearly people really like this material, and I also really like it. I like it because it doesn't pick up any fingerprints at all. You literally cannot tell that I was holding the phone, and that can't be said for phones that have a glossy back. It's also very durable too. You can see there's not really much sign of usage or anything like that. It doesn't get scratched very easily, which is great. And Motorola is known to actually give us interesting finishes on the back of their phones. You probably remember a long time ago they had a phone with a wood back. In fact, I think the new Razr also has that. So I'm just saying, this brand is not afraid to try new things, innovate, and then see what works. Also, this color, by the way, is supposed to be pink. It looks like pink to my eyes, but my camera doesn't pick that up very well, so just keep that in mind. But on the right side of the phone, we have volume up and volume down, also the power button, which doubles as the fingerprint sensor. Then up top here, we have a noise canceling microphone. On the bottom of the phone, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and the main speaker. On the left side of the phone, we just have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. And then on the back of the phone, like I mentioned, we've got the camera module, flash, Motorola logo, and that's pretty much it. So in conclusion, I do think the Moto G Power 5G 2024 is still a good option in 2025. Of course, take a look at the successor to this phone and see if there are any deals offered, because if you can get either phone at the same exact price, then of course go for the newer model. But if you can save money by going for this phone, then do that instead. And I know also this phone has been very popular at the various carriers, so take a look and see what carrier deals are available as well, and maybe that will help you come up with your decision. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. This is Kevin here, and I'll see you in the next one.